just pop some Malcolm X. I'm high off my people, just pop some Malcolm X. So check my crystal method, man. It'll make it choke. Hype slip in my bathroom. My shit is dope.
Right. Okay. Bars, right?
Rakim looking for me. He that microphone fiend. He ain't been straight for years. But now I'ma make him lean. Try not to overdose. Try not to overdose. You will be overseen. If those dudes are malpractice, I'll be the Dr. King.
Right.
They got the dreams, yeah, that they are better. I am a nightmare in a hooded Freddy Krueger sweater. So 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. You better hope to God that dude finds you before I do. Cause I'm a master of massacre, mass murderer, smasher of bastards, monster masher, rocking the mask of mass. I'm Mad Maxia, maximum access placio. Little all over the atlas for the aftermath of the diaspora. Well, you think it's sweet, stick your tongue in it and taste it. Last 5 who tried as hostages in my basement and faceless. Aces. Should I say deuces, spitfire that cook gooses, idiots want war with God and with Satan they want truces? My hate is Thriller. Like to spill some Michael Jackson on it.
Right?
They on that bullshit, shooting like John Paxson on it. Black power is Hollywood cause most of them are acting on it. Some niggas will rock a noose if you put some diamonds and platinum on it.
Why are you so happy?
Civil rights was a fight that Malcolm X was ready for. Reverend King turned his cheek to those apostate of motivation. See, we kept it marching like walls and cats. We kept it pumping on in the Black Panther, but we didn't get far when we really cracked down because our life was our life. Blake, we didn't get far when we really cracked down because our idols are idle when they on their crack now. When brothers talk violence, it's hard to back down. Raised up like soldiers, so it's easy to take a smile. Chain around the neck like dogs, treat our women like bitches. Went around so much that we don't wear belts on our bridges. And it's normal for us to live a short life like ninjas, surrounded by pigs, rats, and pigeons. That's gold niggas, cops, and snitches. Every man for themselves, so we mind our own business. There's a business to raise a child, but see, we have them and forget them. Whenever we feel down, we use chemicals to get lifted. Catch the Holy Spirit, then cross the street for some liquor. Break down the pain, put it all in the swisher. The path of our drive, so there's stuff like Parker stickers.
Yes.
I can't do that.
You don't know how to snap. You can't snap.
My hands full.
Oh, you saying like you can't snap?
Yeah, I wanna.
What you mean you ain't know how?
Ain't nobody recording. My YouTube page don't blow up then. They Lyric Squad, right? That's the name of that group. Dude is like mad happy though.
So, I just want to see if the crowd can freestyle real fast.
Okay. If it ain't old, then it gotta be
No.
roses are red and violets are
Blue.
If it ain't me, then it gotta be
You.
And if it's a lie, then it must be
True.
Thank y'all for listening, man. We are Lyric Squad, which stands for Let Your Rhymes Inspire Creativity. We are a positive, out-of-pocket ran mentor organization that mentor the ages 16 to 24. So like she said, our mentor said, we have an open mic that's cracking after this. It started at 7:30. It's on 55th and Garfield in Indiana. Thank y'all for listening.
I came on to work with, first of all, this year's the 50th anniversary of Freedom Summit. Any of you hear about Freedom Summit?
Yeah!
50 years ago, a group of young people, and I underline that word primarily, young people like yourselves, went down south to Mississippi, Alabama, and other places, and began to open up freedom schools, thereby working with men and women who had never voted before in their life, working with them to teach them the process of voting. This first step in citizenship, voting. This marks 50 years since that moment. It changed the dynamics of the civil rights movement. Understand that clearly. Young men and women went down south and changed the dynamics of the civil rights movement. Whether it was for SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, CORE, NAACP, all of them went down there and changed what was happening. What is the civil rights issue in the 21st century? The president, Barack Obama, said it, he talked about inequality, he talked about the inequality, and also in terms of talking about it in relationship to wealth in this country. He says that what we have basically is an issue around the ability for people, ordinary people, working people, men and women every day to go to work, provide for their family, provide for health care, provide for education, provide for housing, provide for food, all those things. There's an issue with that. More men and women, couples, families are unable to do that today. So what do we do about that? If that becomes the signature struggle over the 21st century here in this country, inequity, how do we become to talk about those issues? I come from a union family. My mother and father worked in the post office, and I know some of you have some relatives who worked in the post office way back then. See, the post office was one of the first places that African Americans got a chance to work in 1947 when the US government desegregated the federal workplace. So a lot of grandparents of yours are here, they went to the post office, they got a job. My parents were the same way. The first thing they did was they began to work in the union and organize a union. Now, the racial demographics of the post office were changing when they came to the post office in 1948. It was changing in a situation to a point where there were primarily African Americans who were working in the post office. And what they did, they began to organize. And right then, they're organizing right there, right at the juncture of the civil rights movement. So their organizing was not just for organizing for better paying and better working conditions for people, for workers. Their organizing was leading and moving at the forefront of the movement.
So this is Will, designer for Deeply Rooted 07. We over here for the workers, the Nissan workers, you know what I'm saying? Choose justice, choose_justice, get at us, dr07clothing.com. Got Danny Glover up there.
And I underline that word primarily, young people like yourselves went down south to Mississippi, Alabama, and other places, and began to open up freedom schools, thereby working with men and women who had never voted before in their life, working with them to teach them the process of voting. This first step in citizenship, voting. This marks 50 years since that moment. It changed the dynamics of the civil rights movement. Understand that clearly. Young men and women went down south and changed the dynamics of the civil rights movement. Whether they were for SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, CORE, NAACP, all of them went down there and changed what was happening. What is the civil rights issue in the 21st century? Always when we say, whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Who are you going to stand up and where you going to find truth and tell your truth? And that's what it's about. A great friend of mine, Ozzie Davis, just a few weeks before he passed away. And Ozzie was a great man. Ozzie Davis not only acted, you know, he wrote the eulogy to whose funeral? To Malcolm X. A shining black prince. Yeah. He wrote the eulogy to that. He said, I said, well, what you doing, Ozzie? He said, man, I had this play. I pulled it out. I hadn't worked on this play for about 30 years. I thought I'd start working on it again. And I said, this is just weeks before he passed away. And I think I got something going here. He said, you know, it's going to take artists to save us from machines. It's going to take poets, artists, and in the old town saying, may we all live our life as artists to save us from machines. You're that process, you're here the truth. I want to thank every single one of the spoken word artists, every single one of you who came up there and gave their heart, and know that within your spirit lies the voice that we need to pull us through the present to the future, calling on the past. Thank you so much.